Welcome once again to the Bills and Bones podcast, where we talk football for the fans with a focus on PC's team, the Buffalo Bills, and my team, the Las Vegas Raiders. This week, we had Bills versus Jets, and we had Raiders versus Saints. This show is brought to you by...
Hey, if you need any of your auto needs to be taken care of during this holiday season, stop on over to D&M Auto Sales at 3071 Seneca Street in West Seneca, New York. Windshield got jacked up, so I had to get a couple of things fixed up on those parts. They were able to help me out with that. Brakes, tires, you know how it gets around this time of the year with the snow. They can take care of all that stuff for you. Give them a shout at 716-541-5618 or stop on over to 3071 Seneca Street, D&M Auto Sales for all your auto needs.
You're on a perfect record of messing up at least one thing.
Just at the beginning. That time it was pretty good.
I thought you had it that time. You were so close.
Yeah, I was close.
Yeah, you were close to that one. Well, let's talk Raiders first today. Let's do that.
Get the old board up. Get the board of draft picks up there, G. We definitely could.
We don't need to see that. We all know we're eighth now. It's over. I mean, it's over. And recent comments by AP is kind of what a lot of people feared is, the way that he was talking. They were asking him about Aiden as a quarterback next year,
sure,
and all that kind of thing. And his comments were like, "Oh yeah, I think Aiden's going to be a starting, quarterback in the NFL." Blah blah blah. And I just have this like really huge fear, and it seems like that's going to be how this all goes. That we keep freaking Aiden, and do something else that's stupid in the draft. I mean, not to say that we don't, that we have no other area we need besides a quarterback, but. At this point, we at least have to trade to move up into a position to draft a quarterback. I mean,
I think there's going to be a lot of action in this draft. Just simply looking at the teams that are at the top, including the Raiders, the Jags, the Giants, the Patriots now, who seem to be at the top. There's a team that's not going to draft a quarterback, so they're kind of out of your way, but would be a team that I know last week you had said would be a possible trade partner. So. I'm certain that they're going to make a big splash. Your team is just way too out in public. I know that the football is down right now, but they still are acting like it's a big party out there. I think they're anticipating making a big splash in the draft, and it's going to be a wild, wild couple of months leading up to it for you guys.
Well, now we're giving up picks to get into a spot that we were in, just naturally, from the way the NFL works. We're giving up picks to get back to that spot. It's funny, watching on the forums or listening to the forums, the momentum for AP as a coach, how much that has shifted. I mean, you went from all these people saying, we don't want Harbaugh. AP is a Raider and he's going to bring blah, 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 blah. And now they're all like calling for blood. We get him out of there. We don't want to have to wait the rest of the season. He's a horrible coach. He makes horrible decisions, all those kind of things.
Saints suck. They're another team that are going to be up near the draft. I think it's funny that Carr sat and didn't play. The Raiders are the only team that haven't beat him, which would have been great that all the teams in the league would finally have beat him. But yeah, the Saints started off like a fire train, man, and they just fizzled out immediately. But
well, I mean, they, the argument for the Saints is the same thing that Carr and his fans have been using for him on the Raiders all the time, which is, well, Carr's amazing, but his defense is horrible, and how can he possibly win games without a defense? We're talking to James there, our fellow James there, about the game. And, all these people are like, see, we told you Aiden was going to be amazing. They're playing against the 30th ranked defense.
They stink.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you put him against the local high school team, then he's going to look really good. Yeah, that's going to happen. I mean, so yeah, did Abdullah have like a career high game yesterday? Absolutely. Did we get to see, Myers do his thing? Yep. Did Aiden look good yesterday? Yep. But it's against a 30th ranked team. We are winning games now and beating teams that don't prove anything or go to anything. We're beating up on teams that are not playing starters, don't have the people to play and all those kind of things. It's a meaningless win besides the fact that, you bring us farther and farther away and to the point now of obscurity as far as, naturally drafting a quarterback. I mean, of course, there's always trades and all those kind of things, but as far as naturally drafting a first round quarterback, you're moving us away from that. This whole boy crush that AP has with Aiden needs to go away. It's at the detriment of our team. I don't know, they need to have a breakup or something, but it's at the detriment of our team. He's a solid number 2 quarterback, and that's fine. But there is no, I don't even know if we have a winning season ahead of us with him as quarterback, let alone playoffs. I mean, to me, he's Derek Carr, but a little worse is what he is. He's the same kind of thing where, he might win enough games that we're a wild card kind of team, and then we just never kind of convert like Derek Carr did for 9 years. That's kind of, how I see him as we're not going to get any further. Okay. We draft a running back, first round this year at position number 8. Okay, cool. Now we got a running game that doesn't solve our, our major problems here. So the fan base is turning on AP. They're questioning, his decision making. They're questioning, how he's running his team. I find it interesting that, 2 weeks ago or so, there were all these reports on who Brady would want as a head coach and who's going to be the new head coach of the Raiders. And then all of a sudden, now we start winning these pointless games when all these reports come out. So I don't know if something soured on that little deal they had or what went on, but, all of a sudden we're winning. And like I said, it might just be a simple matter of we're playing beat up teams that, that can't beat us, even though as bad as we are, still can't beat us. Watching that game yesterday with the Saints, that was sad. That was sad. I mean,
I flipped over to it a bunch and completely dominated them from start to finish. There was really no doubt that they were going to win. There was a lot of crazy games, upsetty kind of games yesterday with the bad teams at the bottom of the barrel. We talked about Jacksonville playing against the Titans. We knew that one of those
Giants and Colts.
I mean, the Colts typically, go in and run it and do and handle their business against the lower ranked teams, but they knocked themselves out of any possible playoff spot. Had they won that game, they would be in the hunt with the Bengals, with the Dolphins, and of course with the Broncos. So it was a crazy day for some goofy kind of plays and some goofy upsets. So and it even though you guys won, the teams that were way ahead of you all won too, except for New England. So it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Rattler was horrible.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. You listen to people talk about, see, I'm glad we didn't get Rattler. Good thing we got Aiden, blah, blah, blah. You look at their stats. Aiden was 20 for 35. Rattler was 20 for 36. Aiden had 242 yards. Rattler had 218. So what are you talking about? Like, Aiden is a god and Rattler sucks. I mean, they're very, very comparable stats for that game. I mean, Rattler took some more sacks than Aiden did. I mean, it's a very comparable sort of deal. And that kind of performance out of Aiden is what we get out of Aiden. As if it was, we need someone to come in and finish out this game for us, then I'm all for back in Aiden. I think he's a good guy for that. I don't think he's going to, give the ball away and all those kind of things. I think he does have some good plays in him and can make those big plays once in a while, but he's just not that guy. And it's a shame because, like I've said before, I like him as a guy. And he is all about, the Raiders. I mean, since he's showed up, he's been a huge team player for us. Likes where he's at, works hard, all those kind of things. And it's a shame that his skill level, doesn't match his attitude, because he could have been kind of like a Josh Allen for the Raiders, as far as, the Raiders, really would have embraced him as a quarterback if he would have had the skill to back it up. And even so, there's plenty of people that keep on, fighting for Aiden as this amazing quarterback, and he's not. I mean, you can't say Rattler is horrible and Aiden is amazing. It just doesn't work that way.
They're both backups. They're both backups. That's you said it last week. You said it about him earlier in the season. He's never going to be the guy that takes you to the promised land. Congratulations on having a great attitude. There's a lot of people like that don't end up seeing the field. It's just the way it goes, dude. And like you said, you're going to have to get that guy in that division now because Bo Nix is coming. You already got, the king at the top of the mountain, and Herbert is got the coach that he's been waiting for. So
Yeah.
you guys better catch up. And if you don't, it's going to continue to be a joke. Because I will say this, as far as jokes go, you guys took over that stadium for once. It was nice to see the Raiders actually show up and show out with their fans in a different building, because there was a ton of them there, and it was really cool to see. And also was cool to see the fact that they hit Bourbon Street pretty hard. A lot of cool videos of the fans having a good time down there, and I certainly would have loved to have been a part of that, and would love to be a part of that in a couple of weeks.
As I said, Abdullah, it's funny, I just, I've kind of always sort of trashed Abdullah, as far as I don't think he's, I think he's good at, the limited scope that he's good at. And I just people send me a text like, well, what do you say about Abdullah now? He racked up yards on, once again, a horrible defense. And he's, the healthiest, option. He's the go-to for Aiden. So yeah, I mean, he look at it, 17, targets, and yeah, okay, yeah, he got 115 yards on a 30th ranked defense. Okay, so yeah, he looked really good yesterday. Congratulations. You were the fastest guy at the one-legged race. I mean, that's good. I don't think that we need to get rid of him, but I don't, he's not, the amazing guy that I just am so excited
He would
about.
be great with a good quarterback. I'll say that without a doubt. His skill set, like you said, he had some targets yesterday, 20 carries, touching the ball, being a big contributor on that offense. Had he, imagine that guy with a Mahomes or somebody like that. You know what I mean? So I get what you're saying. He definitely hasn't been consistent throughout the year, but yesterday, as I was watching, he was definitely the best player on the field.
It was nice to see Aiden remember that Brock Bowers is on his team. Yesterday we got to watch Aiden actually throw the ball to Bowers. I want to be seeing more than 7 targets for him, but considering Aiden's usual thing with Bowers, I'll take it. 7 targets for 77 yards. Bowers breaking more records as he goes here. So it was nice seeing him out there again and doing his thing. I enjoy watching him every week. And there definitely seemed to be that nice connection between Bowers and Aiden that we've been missing in other games. So that was nice to see. I like Myers. I think that he is underrated as a wide receiver. It was nice to see him getting some targets yesterday and putting some yards up. But, like I said, I'd feel better about it if it was, against a team that, was a team that had a defense that you needed to beat. I don't really – yes, we had some shining offensive stars, but we didn't learn anything about our offense. It's not like we're, oh great, all my worries are over now going into, next season because our offense is clicking. Like, no, I mean, we're playing against a team that's, beat already. I guess I didn't mind losing it all because I wanted the quarterback, but I wouldn't mind winning at this point in the season if we were winning against a team that I could be proud of beating. If beating that team gave me some hope for the future, I wouldn't mind winning. Like if it was the kind of thing almost like, see, guys, we could have done this. We were just sleeping this season because we want a quarterback. And, then if we would have beat a team like Kansas City, if we would have beat that team, you know what I mean? Like that
Sure.
would have showed something. And I
How about
wouldn't have
next week?
minded that win.
How about the
So
Chargers? Does that count? Was that?
Chargers would be nice, especially because, they got one on us. Chargers would be nice, but, I'll take it over beating the Saints. I'll take the Chargers.
Yeah.
Um,
Playoff team.
and everyone's like, "Oh, Raiders are on a winning streak." We won 2 games against beat up teams. Like winning streak, like ugh. So that's my thing is if we're gonna win, I'd at least like to see some benefit to winning it. And there were some good moments. Like I said, Bowers is racking it up. I mean, it's undeniable the kind of powerhouse he's going to be for this team or whatever other team gets him. As I seen Abdullah actually play, to some kind of potential. As I see in Myers, Tyree, he's had 5 sacks, I think, in the past bunch of games. So, in the last 9 games, he's had 5 sacks. We've been waiting on Tyree.
Defense was awesome in the second half. Awesome.
Yeah,
it was fun to watch on him. For the Bills and the Raiders. I'm flipping back and forth, and they're making plays, sacking the quarterback, stuffing them. We're getting fumbles. It was a nice couple of minutes to watch both of our teams do well. I did want to ask you something, G, and I know that you're a history kind of guy. How do you feel about these records being broken by guys that played in 14 games or guys that played in 16 games compared to like Barkley's got a chance to break the all-time record, but he's going to do it with 17 games. He barely beat OJ, and OJ did it in 14. So, like, I just feel with Bowers too. When those records were being made, Ditka's record was the first one, and he only played in 14 games. So, like, what's your take on it? Do you think there should be like some asterisks involved, or how should they handle that?
To me, that's like every sport has the same thing going on as far as we progress. I mean, think about the athlete. So think about how an athlete. Baseball is a great example. Think about how a athlete in baseball looks now to how an athlete looked when it was like Ty Cobb and Bob. You know what I mean? Like even our definition of what an athlete looks like, the amount of training that goes into it. It's not guys that work a regular job and then show up on Saturday to go play a game or something. This is all that they do. Even technology like cleats and footwear and the drugs that we shoot these guys up with. Like as all of those things progress, as technology progresses and all that, you're creating a completely different breed of athlete. And I mean, what are you going to do? Cut the records off every 10 years and say, this is the record for that decade. I think
I get that. I get it. And baseball, they're up to 162 games. It wasn't always like that. And guys like Cobb and Honus Wagner and Warren Spahn and old time players that Cy Young, all the records that that baseball's named for, they didn't play as many games as guys are playing now. Yeah. And you're right. Like the competition is clearly much crazy. I mean,
this is all these guys do now is train and prepare for that game. That's not how it used to be in football. It's not how it used to be in baseball, all those kind of things. Like, so you're going to naturally have a progression of, breaking records and pushing the envelope of what the human being itself is capable of. And that's the same way in any sport. Same way in Olympics, what our runners can do and stuff in Olympics now. Like, it's just, we know so much more about the science of training an individual to be faster, to, the right muscle groups, the blah, blah, blah. We just know so much more about that than we used to. So as you progress in that, in that physical science, I think it's just natural that you're going to produce, a much better athlete and people that are built, for this. I remember years ago, they were worried that the next big form of cheating is going to be genetic engineering of, engineering a baby or something to have basketball traits and, blah, blah, blah. I remember when they were talking about all that. What was that? that film with Ethan Hawke, and but they remember he was like genetically engineered, and if you didn't have the right genetics, you were like an outcast of society.
Yeah,
I
I don't
forgot what it
remember.
was called, but that's about when all these people started worrying is you had people genetically engineered to be an aircraft pilot or whatever else, like that's what they were built for.
The
Um,
Maker, is that what it was? I
no,
don't know.
it started with a G, but that's what it was. That's what it was designed. That's what they were designed for. So I think that
So
you can hold those records. I think you should hold the records in the place of the time that they were in, and the limited science that was available, the limited training that was available, limited games that was available. It's amazing to do that. You got to remember though, they're also playing against people that are less of an athlete than it is today. Like, okay, Babe Ruth, all these, home runs, blah, blah. The pitcher that he's hitting on is also in that same era of physical science. Whereas now, you take a basketball player,
everybody's kind of
he's
on the
playing
same
against other
level.
people his level.
Yeah.
So I think that I think the biggest hit to the records to me is the amount of games played. I don't mind the technology that goes into cleats now, into helmets now, into
Mm-hmm.
training now. The fact that you give people 4 more games to break those records, to me, that's the biggest hit on that record. I mean, there's a meme with Dan Marino, I think, that they put on Facebook all the time, that Marino's like, if I could play in today's NFL, like my record would be nothing compared to what I could do. You know what I
It'd
mean?
be a joke. He would have been,
It's just the way it is.
quick release. He was smart, like just very
Yeah,
Brady like at
and
that
like you said,
time.
more games to do it. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the argument that I have is that I think it should stop at 16 or even at 14 when you're talking about the Dickerson did it in 16. Juice did it in 14. So like obviously in Buffalo before he became famous for other reasons, people knew about that stat. That team wasn't good. They were terrible. That's why, like, I think what Saquon did this year is very impressive because he did it on and with a very good team. So they're dangerous. I mean, that's a team that I'm very worried about in the future, but I'd love to be worried about them, to be perfectly honest with you. But at the end of the day, like, the way that I'm going to judge is going to be on where the game stops, like you said. 16 games, 14 games, 17 games, whatever. But then like you look at like what Josh is doing, and Josh scored his 65th rushing touchdown yesterday. He fucking tied Thurman Thomas. Thurman played here forever and is in the Hall of Fame. He's like, he's not even the stratosphere that most Bills fans like put above everything else. And Josh did it in his 7th year, pretty much, 5 years where he's really dominating, and we're taking it so much for granted. So like you're right, like the breed of athlete, the type of player that is out there now, that are all competing and going at each other with all the science and cleats and technology and trainers and
If you
drugs,
took today's athlete and put them, whatever,
destruction.
30 years back, it would look like an alien came down onto the ball field or whatever else. I mean, it would be, crazy
Imagine going
ridiculous.
even farther back. There was a funny skit years ago on Saturday Night Live when Jordan went and played hoops with like a bunch of white dudes back in like the 50s or the 60s. And like, they're playing all slow, pick and roll bullshit. Jordan grabs the ball and he's dunking and going crazy. And the coach is like, that's not how we do it, son. It was just like, it is such a different breed of athlete. You're 100% right.
I think sometimes like we forget, like if you meet these people too. I mean, as someone that has obviously has met one of these athletes, when you see them on TV surrounded by other guys that are
Yeah,
all 6'3",
it's
300
crazy.
pounds, they look normal. But then when you go, if you see one of them, it's like, what the hell happened? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, I was watching, I think it was Mighty Ducks the other night, and my wife saw Wilt Chamberlain for the first time, like in a room with normal people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. When he's not on a basketball court, that's what he looks like to normal people. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. I could see like having a record, saying, if you want to beat OJ's record, beat it in 14 games. If
I
you
feel
want to
like that
beat,
they have that little
Bowers, beat it in
chatter, but
16.
I feel like they have that chatter between each other. I really do, because Saquon, like, they were all asking him after the game, "Are you looking forward to break?" Because he needs 105 next week, and I don't even think he needs to play. So, they were like, "Don't you want to break the record?" He's like, "Hell no, that's Eric Dickerson's record. I don't want to take that from him," and I respect that. But I also respect the point that you made that, if you went back 30 years, 30 years isn't that long ago. I mean, Shaq was playing 30 years ago. I mean, if you were to really click it back and go back to like the 60s and 70s and insert some of the guys that are playing in the NFL now, were there a handful of guys that were supernatural athletes that were out of this world? Absolutely. But everybody's like that now because of the things that you said. You don't get to the NFL without, you know, going D1 and having the training staff and having the availability of all the things that, they probably take for granted now. It's just going to make you such a better player and put you on a different path than, the farm boy that they found in French Lick, Indiana, who just shot jumpers in his backyard all day.
Not really that long ago, you were watching NFL players take smoking breaks on the bench before they went out there to play.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or they'd be drinking and partying the night before and
Right.
show up with a hangover to play on that Sunday. I mean,
I
it
can
wasn't that
remember.
long ago.
I could remember in my life seeing them downtown getting pissed up, a couple nights a week before the games and whatever. I mean, that was the norm. Now you never see that shit. And if you do, those guys go out because of the way the world is. They don't want nobody around them, so they have their own little private things. Like everything has changed, and a lot of it for the good, and some of it, especially when we're talking about breaking records, not so good.
So getting to the Bills and Jets, that was
awesome.
That was I mean, that was just sad. As somebody that wants to enjoy a football game, I just couldn't enjoy it. I mean, if you're a Bills guy, of course you enjoy it. But
right.
As someone that's just watching the football game, you're like, just please, stop this. It was like Cool Hand Luke, where Luke just keeps getting up, and you're just like, please stop it. Just stop getting up, Luke. Just stop it. That's what it was like watching that game. And stat wise, it's not even like that crazy stat wise.
Well, that's what happens when you sit at the end of the third quarter and not play. So you put that in there. That was probably Rodgers' worst game that he's ever had in our barn. That's for sure. Stats wise, Josh didn't really need to do much. The late touchdown, honestly, a lot of people thought he wasn't even going to be in the game when they got the late one to Coleman. A couple of things. Obviously, I want to see the defense continue to get better, get stronger. They didn't look too good right off the bat, but then when they were able to stop the Jets on that fourth down and get the safety, I think once the Bills got that safety, it was over in the second quarter. There was no turning back, and then obviously the Jets completely nosedived in the third quarter and gave it up to us a bunch. Plus, their penalties were horrible. I don't know what it is with the Jets, G, but they still think that they're hot shit. They come in talking junk. They want to get it all riled up with Josh. There is some incredible stuff online. Before the game, the Jets came out with like this big ghetto blaster, and they were playing Gangster's Paradise coming down the tunnel as they were going to enter the field. The whole team. There's a picture of one guy watching them walk out onto the field, holding his jersey just like this. Who do you think the guy is watching him go out?
That'd be the Josh Allen pose.
Fucking A, baby. 17 watched them with kind of like a shit-eating grin on his face, like, okay, motherfuckers, we'll see what's up today. And they blasted him a bunch. He got knocked on his ass a bunch, and, we don't want to see him get hurt. But anytime we play the Jets, there's just a different breed of nastiness that comes out of Josh and comes out of a lot of our offensive linemen. There was tons of fights, a lot of shit talking. It was exactly what the doctor ordered for me. Well documented that I hate Aaron Rodgers long before he was on the Jets. But for him to come in there and completely suck it up and asked to be taken out of the game. He went to the coach and basically said, "Don't you think it's about time we put Tyrod in?" And he did it. And Tyrod went in there and looked great. So no Bills fans were sad to see Tyrod come into the game, and
No,
you
and
know,
in fact, from what I heard, like talk about at the stadium is Tyrod was actually cheered by the Buffalo Bills fans and everything in the stadium. He actually got an ovation and everything else for that. So that was pretty cool.
like there have been instances in history where players come back, and obviously, McDermott really keeps a lot of his guys around. Okay, right? Tyrod was one of the first players that was here in McDermott's first season. So he wasn't somebody that he brought in here, right? But he did build an extremely awesome relationship with him, and they actually broke the drought of 17 years. So that's a big reason why fans love him around here. But after the Jets had attempted their 2-point conversion on the second touchdown that they got, Tyrod was rolling towards the Bills' sideline, and after he threw it and they didn't get it, he ran right down the sideline, right over to McDermott, and gave him a huge hug. Now, we're talking in the middle of the game. So it wasn't like the game was over yet or anything like that. I don't know, G. I don't have to tell you, Buffalo's definitely a very unique place, and we hold a lot of our star athletes at a very high level. Tyrod was awesome when he was here. He never got in any trouble. He did his best to get us back to where we needed to be. And obviously, once we drafted Josh, we knew what direction this franchise was going to go. But I loved him when he was here. He was fun to watch, and it was cool to see him have a little bit of success while Rodgers sat on his ass and didn't do shit. So I enjoyed that game a great deal. The defense still has some question marks, but I feel like as we continue to get healed up and ready for the playoffs, this team is definitely someone that you don't want to be playing against come January.
Yeah, I thought it was a sort of a nail in the coffin game, for Rodgers. There's all this talk spinning around about, is Rodgers going to be done with the Jets and blah, blah, blah. At this point, it almost seems like an amicable breakup. At this point, it's like Rodgers doesn't seem to want to play for the Jets anymore. He's obviously not doing anything for the Jets. I mean, appearances, sometimes different than what's actually going on. But just from watching it on TV and everything else, neither side of that looks like they're happy with Rodgers. They banked a lot on Rodgers. They thought Rodgers was going to come in there and completely turn this franchise around, and they were going to be great. And let's make America great again with the Jets or something. I remember their fans were mouthy as hell. This year
Oh
they
my
were a
god!
little bit quieter. After last year, that whole thing that happened, they were a little bit quieter this year. But their fans were freaking mouthy as hell about now we're gonna we have this the number one defense, and now that we have Aaron Rodgers, we're going Super Bowl, blah blah blah, and none of that has panned out. None of it. He's been a severe disappointment to them. Even their stars yesterday. Looking at Brees Hall's numbers. I mean Brees Hall with 45 yards. I mean no one on the Jets is playing where they should be at this point in the game. Devontae is doing the same thing that he was doing in over here. So great. I'm glad you guys paid him off for us, and we don't have to eat that contract. But that was another one is Devontae's going to come over here and we're going to reunite Devontae and Rodgers, and it's going to be great.
And
And
they
blah,
did
blah,
it
blah.
when they were terrible. They didn't do it at the beginning of the year. It wasn't like it was just everything that I wanted to happen to them did. And now it's going to be interesting. Devontae's gone. He's going to leave. Someone's going to pick him up. He's definitely going to get signed. Be like Hopkins or Beckham or one of those types of players right now. But you're talking about Rodgers. They can get out of that, but they're still going to get drilled on the salary cap for next year once they do. So they're in a tough spot. Fine with me. They can suck ass for as long as possible. The only chance that they have of doing anything is if they were to nail a rookie quarterback, and they're not going to because 4 wins is not going to get you the first pick. So, or at least near the top of it. You already know that. So I don't know what to say. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they clean house quarterback, coach, and then also, some of the higher priced players that have been there for a couple of years that are probably sick and tired of the bullshit.
it will be interesting to see, in the offseason and everything, what goes on with a team like the Jets, because they don't seem to. They really thought that they had the answer, and they thought they had the winning combo last year, and then of course this year again they thought that they had it, and they don't. I mean, they're regressing at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what they do on the off season to try to turn that around. But they do not look like a team that's going to give you guys problems for a
No,
little while at least.
I'm look, and another thing. There's a couple things. Obviously, we talked about the 17 games in the season, 16. The Bills scored the most points in franchise history yesterday. 13 different guys scored passing touchdowns. There's just so maybe 13 different guys scored touchdowns, whatever it was. We're in a completely different spot than a lot of people anticipated. Everybody assumed that we would regress and take a step back. Obviously, the playoffs are going to determine that in the eyes of many. But as far as fielding a team and filling the holes and doing what we needed to do to not only win the division but get to this spot and have a shot at the main prize, the Bills have done a fantastic job. And it was cool to see some of the substitutes playing yesterday. Shaver scoring a touchdown, Trubisky throwing it to him. We had a lot of defensive guys out there who mean a lot to this team and play special teams. So when they have an opportunity to get out there on the field and make some plays, it's great. I don't know if you were watching, G. Did you see like the Bills whooping it up and getting crazy on the sideline when Anderson, the kid from Lancaster, number 44 on the Bills, is actually from Buffalo, played in the suburb, went to UB, and he's out there making plays on special teams all the time, and now he makes some good ones for the defense in the fourth quarter. I mean, it's just
It almost reminded me of like those high school games where like the seniors like sit
yeah,
out and let some freshmen get in there, and they celebrate that freshman scoring their first basket. Like
right.
that's how much of a whooping it was that they were. I mean, if it was at the Bills Stadium, they might have put out an announcement like a new contest, like C245. Would you like to come down here and try to catch a touchdown? I mean, it was like it was just so bad. Like it was embarrassing. It was not a fun game to watch. At no point did even when the score wasn't forever away, and in those first two quarters,
Right.
at no point did you feel like Jets were going to come back from that. It wasn't
No.
like, wow, I don't know, they need more points than that.
Well,
It was just a low scoring, first two quarters. That's all that
they
was.
moved the ball and kept the clock running in the first half. There were three huge defensive plays that completely allowed like us to cruise once we got into the third quarter. The stop on fourth down on their first drive, the safety, which gave us the 2-score lead, and then the interception down, fat guy interceptions are the best type of interceptions in football. And when Jordan Phillips, what a play. They bat it up in the air. He catches it, but instead of being a goofball and getting hurt or doing something stupid, he hits the ground right away, and then he goes celebrates with the boys. Then he has a good time, and that's fine. You can do something stupid then, but don't get smacked by someone on the other team when you're trying to return a fumble. But seriously, those three plays basically dictated how the game was going to go, because once that third quarter came and we made the adjustments like we always do, it was a turnover nightmare for the Jets, and we totally took advantage of it.
Yeah, it made them it made them look really bad, and it looked, honestly, to me, it was a good game for you guys with the playoffs coming up, because it was almost like you guys got to unleash some steam on that one and just have some fun, and it was almost like a bonding game for your team. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a good game to have like that before we start getting into the end of season here, and when things are going to start heating up. It's kind of like
I feel
a
like the
pressure release
teams,
valve there.
at least this year, the teams that run their fucking yap and got something to say, and other than Baltimore and the Texans were running their yap pretty good too, but they're completely out of it, in my opinion. I just the way that the Bills have responded when people get chippy with them is impressive, and the Jets do an incredible job of bringing that out of us. So you're right. Having that game where we can kind of go out there and, dust it up a little bit and play some old fashioned football and rub their nose in it. Fuck yeah. Because next week, a lot of those guys are going to be wearing hoodies and chilling on the sideline and laughing it up as the subs are getting the job done and we start to prepare for whoever it's going to be that we play in that wild card round. So kudos to them. They did something that has been a dream of mine for years, G, and you'll appreciate this. For years, as the Patriots would win the division, we would play meaningless games against them at the end of the year because they already locked up the 1 seed, or they already had locked up the 2 seed, and I would go down there, there'd be games here, and their fans would come and they would rub our nose in it, and I would love nothing more than to go down to Foxborough and talk some trash, but those 6 rings still get in the way sometimes when you want to rub it in their face. But
yeah, that is an issue. That as well as your biggest complaint about the whole Raiders Bills argument is we still bring up our Super Bowls, and it was a while ago.
But I remember these ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was a part of my unfortunate misery as being a Bills fan, was having to watch them march on down and get that trophy. But I'll tell you this: for as much as I hate the Patriots, you can see why a lot of Bills fans hate the fucking Jets way more. The Patriots have a reason to stick their chest out and act like they're the shit, even though they're not, and they haven't been for a while now. But the Jets won 1 Super Bowl back when the man hadn't even been on the moon yet, and we're gonna pretend like like that's something special. Fuck that! I'm so sick and tired of them to destroy them like we did yesterday and see their season come crashing down. Here's the one thing that is kind of getting lost in transition. Rodgers has 499 touchdown passes. For as much as I hate them and I love seeing them lose, I would love to see they got Miami coming into New York this weekend. I would love to see him go out there and get 504 touchdowns and call it a day and retire after smoking the Dolphins and knocking them out of any chance of them getting into. But we got to talk a little bit about that, G. A little bit about the playoff scenarios in this weekend. So wrapping up with the Bills, I'll just say I'm looking forward to the playoffs, and I hope we can continue to get healthy, which has been my major focus all of December.
So next week, as we kind of mentioned, we got Chargers coming up. It's interesting, with a team like the Chargers because, we said we wanted AP instead of Harbaugh. Personally, I think that Harbaugh wanted the Chargers over the Raiders as well. I don't think it was. Everyone acts like Harbaugh was like begging to come to Raiders, and we said no, we want AP. Personally, I think that he wanted to work with the quarterback that he's working with. I think that he wanted to be where he's at right now. But you look at Chargers, they're compared to last season, they're coming around. They're looking good.
They beat you guys, they're going to have to go to Baltimore unless Baltimore blows it and the Steelers sneak in there. So,
at this point, I guess we might as well, if we beat the Chargers, at least I can say that we showed, some improvement, or that we beat a legit team, at least if we can beat the Chargers. But if we lose to the Chargers next week, then these past 2 wins, are even more meaningless, because now all you did was make sure we're kicked out of the draft for the QB, and you didn't prove anything. AP's all of a sudden AP's doing this, this talking, like we're always trying to win and blah blah blah. You beat 2 teams on their way out. I mean, win some legit games, and then talk to us about the winning culture that you're putting in. So
right.
for him to do that talk after those 2 games is, he's not making himself look good, and the fans are turning on him. It'd be interesting. I don't know what the players are like with him at this point, but he's not the beloved coach. So he's kind of got to win now. He has to win to make it look, legit. So I guess what I would like to see out of the Raiders next week is I'd like to see a legit win. I'd like to see Aiden being a legit quarterback. I don't want to just see him do well against broken down teams. If he's going to do well, if we're going to be stuck with him for another season, which, seems like it might be a possibility at this point,
Possibility.
then I at least want to see him, do well against a team like the Chargers. But,
Right.
we'll see. So I guess, I would like to see some improvement at this point. But
It looks like the Chargers are going to be the 6. I don't know. I don't think there's wiggle room for Denver to get there, but the Raiders could make things very, very physical real quick for most teams. I'd be interested to see what Harbaugh does if they're stuck in that 6th position. The Bills have been in this game before, where they can't go up, they can't go down, and typically the coach will give them a quarter or two, maybe even less, just to avoid any disaster. So I don't know, G. Might be a 3 in a row exit for the Raiders this year, with something to build on for next year with 3 wins, 3 big wins to finish the season. Maybe we go smoke some cigars to that shit, baby. What do you say?
That's exactly how AP ended last season.
No,
so it's exactly what he did last season. Is he won some games at the end of the season, and everyone, we won AP, and Aiden's amazing. But here we are. What are you looking for next week?
So obviously, with the Bills playing the Pats, nothing matters at all. They will have multiple substitutes in there. Now, offensive line will probably have to be in there quite a bit. A lot of subbing and things like that will be going on. Defense, the same. I don't anticipate anything other than Josh Allen probably coming in and doing the first drive, similar to what you would see in like a preseason game, G, because he does have a consecutive like streak on the line that he doesn't want to mess up. So I guarantee you he'll go out there and he'll snap the ball on that first drive, and that'll probably be it. Guys that are banged up are going to sit. Amari Cooper might have got a concussion. Coleman has had problems, obviously, all season with that wrist. Milano, it might be time to let him chill out a little bit, but he's still coming back. You got Dorian Williams and some of the secondary. Hamlin's been out still. He won't play. So does it suck that we didn't get the 1? Absolutely. Is it nice that we have the 2 and can sit everybody the week before? Yes.
It's now you're
nice.
looking at maybe some development for this game. Is let's see what our what our backbone is here. What
if someone goes down in the playoffs? Who's going to step up? G, I like that point. So that's us. But as far as all the scenarios for the playoffs, it breaks down very simply to this in the AFC. Okay, if Denver goes in and beats the Chiefs' backups, they'll get the 7, which will keep out the Dolphins and the Bengals. Okay, if Denver loses, okay, and the Dolphins win, then they're in. Okay, if Denver loses and the Dolphins lose, then the Bengals sneak in. Okay, the Bengals got to go to Pittsburgh. That's never going to be easy for anybody. The Dolphins got to go to New York and play Aaron Rodgers in probably his last game in that stadium, chasing the 500 touchdown passes. Okay, and we already talked about it. I think Denver has a huge advantage playing against. I think forget who the backup for the Chiefs is. The old guy from Philly, he used to be there. Carson Wentz is their backup. So you'll be seeing a lot of him. And Denver has no reason or no excuse not to win that game. Now, the NFC is a completely different story. There are some sweet games that are this weekend. You've got Seattle and the Rams for the West. And you've been saying it all year, man. That Seattle team just fucking found a way to have a shot at this. I think the Rams are probably playing the best football in the NFC right now. They're the last team anybody wants to play. So obviously, if they win that division and have a home game, they're going to be playing against a Green Bay or maybe even I can't believe I'm about to say this, Lions or Minnesota, because one of those 2 teams are going to sneak in as that other wild card. So the NFC has got some sweet fucking games this weekend. And that Detroit against Minnesota game on Sunday night being the A-line game of the week that everybody is going to be tuned in for, because it's rocking right now. The whole league is kind of waiting to see who they're going to play in the playoffs, but a lot of people kind of got a pretty good idea who it's going to be. I personally think Denver will be coming here, and I personally think we'll be smacking the shit out of them, but that doesn't mean anything yet. So hopefully, when we get to that spot, we can talk a little bit about it more next week. And, you know, obviously, I'm excited for this weekend. It's going to be one of the best football weekends in a long time. You got college football playoffs tomorrow. It's a good time of the year, man, and I'm excited about it. Who do you think's going to win in that Seattle Rams game, G?
I actually, bet against Seattle last week in our pick'em league and got hit pretty hard.
That was an ugly game.
Yeah, I got hit pretty hard on that one. I don't see Seattle doing it. I don't, but they're that team. they're that team that can do that. But
Yeah, they're good, man. They're fun to watch.
I'll be betting against them this week on Pick'em though. I'll be betting against them this time. But
okay. What about Vikings and Detroit? I know you've been a Detroit guy all year round, but
I like Detroit. Detroit's one of those local, gritty teams like the Steelers, like Raiders used to be.
Sure.
I like those kind of teams. I think that Vikings and Lions match up pretty well, to tell you the truth, as far as play styles and all that. Yeah. I think that the Lions got it though. I think the Lions can, barring any really horrible coaching decisions, I think that the Lions can do it.
Be careful.
Coaching decisions are something you have to figure into the Lions' success is going to be, what's the coach going to do? You have to figure that into the Lions' success.
This is true.
But Vikings, lately at least, they have kind of choked a little bit when they need to come up with something. So it'll be interesting to see. The Lions, I know, are playing really hard. Not to say that the Vikings are not. I think that they have a big chip on their shoulder from last year and something to prove this year. So I like the Lions over Vikings. But like I said, I think that they match up really well as two teams to duke it out.
I made a bet with a good friend of mine earlier in the season who didn't think the Vikings were very good, and he thought Detroit was the better team. So I love that it comes down to this last game of the season between the two of them. But don't forget, Detroit does have to go tonight. So they got San Fran. Not to say that no matter what, that game is going to be for home field and for the division. So it'll be a good one, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And Darnold's been great.
Yes, yeah, he has been great. San Francisco, I'm kind of surprised has not come up a little bit more in conversations around the league as a team. I mean, they're still like that, that team that can, give you a run for your money and give you some upsets. But
they got some good defense, but unfortunately this season they just got destroyed by injuries.
And this season they were kind of geared to do something.
Well, they were supposed
to.
That's so
it was kind of disappointing for their fans for sure on that one. But it's funny, like for me, whenever I think of San Francisco, it's always going to be Rice for me. As far as like if I think about that team, it's always Rice because I to this day I it was like one of my first football cards was Rice in that gold and red and blah 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 like so whenever I think of San Francisco I always think of Rice, which is funny because you think I would think of Raiders, but no always think of San Francisco. We will next week. We'll do some playoff talk. Next week will be a good week to do that. I don't think we're going to have a lot to talk about with Bills and Patriots. I don't think we're going to have a lot to talk about.
I could give you the headline on Mitch Trubisky right now. He's going to be about 14 for 32 and maybe 212 yards with a touchdown and an interception. Should be right in that ballpark.
He'd be a good under bet on yards. Yeah, he'd be a good under bet for sure.
Yeah, I would be all over that game because the national media and the national market doesn't know it, but Josh is not going to play much of that game. They're just going to assume he's going to want to play because of the MVP bullshit. And I guarantee you will sit very early and be there to have fun with the boys. That's for sure.
And I'm hoping, maybe next week I'll have a lot to talk about. If we do well, then hopefully I can point out some hope from different areas that we did well in, and hopefully I'm not sitting here next week talking about how well we didn't prove anything. We're back to losing because we played a real team. So hopefully we show something next week. But we'll go over some playoff stuff next week for everybody and get to it.
Go Bills.
So, have a good night.
Go Denver.